Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Overtime. Overtime is a daily program, Mondays to Fridays at about 1:30 in the afternoon for an hour, and with overtime in every case. And this afternoon, I'm sure we'll go overtime again. We have a very, very special guest, and it is our distinct honor, distinct privilege to have him with us this afternoon. And siya nako, idol na ko ni siya. And I have here something prepared by our staff. But I thought that I should read the article written by Thelma Shioson in April of 2023. The story of the famous fashion designer who chose God. Galing. And let me read. It's quite long, but I hope you'll bear with me. I thought I should do this because there's no other way of describing our special guest. Dom Martin Hizon-Gomez was born to a prominent Pampanga clan to Domingo and Eloisa Gomez and Paras Hizon. At 18, he was a cum laude graduate of AB Philosophy at San Beda College in Manila, who also wanted to dabble in fashion design. Instead, however, he worked for a master's degree at UST, also in philosophy, and taught moral philosophy also at UST. At 20, he was granted his wish to study fashion design in New York at Mayer School of Fashion Design, later at Sims, and in those years he learned the rudiments of the profession, from sketching to sewing. He represented Mayer in a design competition, which he had won, and he became the first Asian to win the New York Design Foundation Award. And this was in 1970. Wow. After winning the award, he went on a retreat in upstate New York, which he now recalls as a beautiful experience. After a train ride that gave one a passing view of the ugly graffiti walls, he came upon the late autumn scenery of golden leaves, and it started to snow, and he got off on the landscape covered with clean white snow. He saw in this as a sign. After a cluttered scenery came a beautiful, quiet moment. He was drawn to the experience of the retreat, which to his parents was the warning sign to bring him back to Manila, lest they lost him to a religious life. In Manila, he became an assistant to Christian Spiritu, the designer of the turnos of the then First Lady Imelda Marcos. The 2.5-year stint with Christian brought him to a well-heeled fashion clientele, but it also left him drained. He quit and took a long respite from the industry. Then in 1974, he opened his own atelier in Malati near Remedios Circle. From 1974 to 1989, the designer Gang Gomez had a thriving career dressing the who's who of society. He was the favorite of Imelda Cuanco and Faye Panlilio, and held sway over his peers. He helped found the Filipino Designers Group with good friends Joe Salazar, Rusty Lopez, Oji Cordero, Ino Soto, Cesar Gaupo, Lulu Tangan. But more important to him, with Ven Varales, he was active in and then led the Congregación Santísimo Nombre del Niño Jesús, which propagated the devotion to the child Jesus. Eventually, in his late 30s, he looked inward again and talked to his spiritual director. Why, my Lord, is calling me to the religious life? He was asked by his spiritual council and family to have some time for discernment, that it could be just a form of midlife crisis. Finally, shortly after 1990, he joined the Transfiguration Abbey in Bukidnon, Malaybalay. It was a new decade, a new life. The irony of life is that his monastic life also gave him a venue to exploit his talent and expertise as a designer. Never underestimate the grace of God, he says. What I gave up in fashion was given back to me. I was allowed to design for the church, to design for the greatest and most important celebration, the Holy Eucharist. He adds, God has plans for us. It is our duty to try to search and find out, to learn to listen, the moments of silence, so we're in touch with the Lord. Life is a constant, deep communication with the Lord. This has been the life of worship, faith, and hope of Dom Martin. Ladies and gentlemen, the Dom Martin Dom Martin Hizon-Gomez, previously and still to many known as Gang Gomez. Good afternoon, Dom, and welcome to Overtime.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me in your program.
Yeah, ako'y natuntua, no? I studied in San Beda between 1971 and 1975, my College of Law. And then even after graduation, until 1995, we would go to San Beda every Sunday and play basketball. Yeah, Sunday club,
Yes.
We called ourselves. And talaga, you were the talk of the town, the talk of every group. San Beda, every San Beda alumnus has always been proud of you.
Thank
Galing.
you. Thank you very much.
And let's try to explore your story,
Yeah.
your journey.
Yeah.
Ang parents mo, Gomez and
Hizon.
Paras Hizon,
Yeah.
from San Fernando, Pampanga.
Yeah.
And there are 4 of you in the family. You're the second, 2 boys
Yes.
and 2 girls.
Yes.
And would you like to tell us how you grew up and with your siblings in
Yeah.
San Fernando,
In
Pampanga?
San Fernando. Yes. Well, it was a very simple, ordinary Filipino family. My father was running the hacienda, the sugar hacienda of my lolo. My mother was a full-time housewife who took very good care of us. We were all, I think, very, very industrious and very dedicated to our studies. And so all of us went to college, finished college, and then went on to do our own careers. Eri, my eldest brother, became a vice president at RCBC before he finally opened Honda Cars Pampanga for the family. My sister, Eloisa Jr., was a businesswoman, and my sister, the youngest, Early, was for some time employed at the Philippine Tourism Authority. Yeah, before she opened up together with her in-laws the Kapampangan restaurant called Patio Mekeni in Remedios Circle, which that time was rather quite popular.
Very
also.
popular. I've been there.
Yeah. And it was they only had to stop it when they had to move to the province because their only daughter, could not take the pollution in Manila. So she was always being hospitalized with asthma and all of that, until finally the doctor said, maybe you should move to the province, So, ayun, very simple, very quiet life,
Yeah, and Pampanga cooking is the best in the country.
Well, they say, especially for the women,
Yeah.
you know, it's a big disgrace in the family
Uh-huh.
if you are a Pampangenia and you do not know how to cook. You know,
Yeah.
in my case, I only started cooking when I was a student in New York. You know,
Oh, you
because
had to do that.
you have after 3 months of burgers and all of
Yeah.
those food,
Yeah.
you know, I finally wrote my mother and I
Yeah.
said, could you send me a cookbook? And of course, it was Nora Dasa's cookbook,
Also
no, also a
Kapampangan.
Kapampangan.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
owe so much to the late Nora Dasa, my beginning as
Yeah.
learning to cook.
You were in New York for quite some time.
Well, 2.5 years.
Yeah,
2.5 years. I took up this course at Mayor's School of Fashion Design,
Uh-huh.
but that was already after I had my initial education in fashion in Slims.
Sleeves.
Yeah,
I see.
that's why I
see.
owe it also to Slims that I had very good foundations,
Mhm.
so that when I went to
Mhm.
Mayor's, my teachers were quite impressed
Uh-huh.
because I was moving very fast in the lessons, no, and
Oo. Ang record mo in the academic side has been very outstanding. You took up your elementary in San Fernando.
in San Fernando,
Oo.
in Assumption Academy, which was under Saint
Sage
Scholastica.
ko. Oo.
Yeah, and then when I was in grade 5, they refused already to take in boys. So that was the time also
You had
that
to leave.
I had to leave. And
Uh.
that time, in time enough, Don Bosco opened
Also.
in San Fernando.
Also in San
So I
Fernando.
took up my high school in Don Bosco.
I see.
And
I see.
then, of course, when it came to college, it was time to go to
Pero you
Manila.
finished high school at the age of 14.
At the age of 14, yes,
Wow.
I started quite early and
Yeah.
quite moved on quite fast.
Yeah.
I finished high school at 14.
Yeah.
I finished my AB philosophy at San Beda at 18.
Yeah.
I finished all of my masteral units at UST at 20.
20.
Yeah. So when I was 20, I told my father, now I think I said I'm old enough to go to New York. So they finally gave in and allowed me to study fashion in New York,
Yeah,
which was
yeah.
my dream.
If you had pursued law, if that you had been interested in it, you would have been a lawyer at the age of 22.
Well, you see,
Some of your classmates in high school, in AB, I understand you were classmates with Artugade and
yes, and Vitaliano Aguirre.
Vit Aguirre,
Yes,
both
yeah.
graduated valedictorians in their respective classes.
Yes, yeah, it was, well, I was enjoying studies, you know. In fact, when I went to San Beda, I just wanted to please my parents. I said, okay, I'll take a liberal arts education. And then when it was third year, you have to choose
Yeah, yeah.
a master field, no?
Yeah.
So the dean said, so what do you intend to do? So I told him, honestly, I'm here only to grow older. So, he said, because he said I wanted to study abroad. But
Who was your dean then?
Dean Enriquez, whom I admired so much.
Enrique.
Enrique, yeah. Yeah, Enriquez, and he was a very, very good dean. And he said, so let's just look at your subjects and your grades. And he said, wow, you have very good grades in philosophy. He said, so do you like it? Oh, I said, I enjoy it. So he said, well, take it as your major. You know, so that's what I did. So when it was time to go to graduate school, I also took up philosophy. Yeah.
This time in UST.
Yeah.
They don't have master's degree in philosophy in San Beda.
In San Beda. No, there was no graduate school then.
There was no.
Remember, this was way back 1967.
Yeah.
1967.
Yeah. And wow, you were very young. You were much younger than your classmates, at least 2 years younger.
In fact, I was a lot of times older than some of my students, because when I was in my second year of graduate school, one of my professors offered me to teach moral philosophy also at UST. and I was handling fourth year college students. So, I was 19 and some of my students were 20, 21.
Yeah, yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I loved it. And somehow, now that I look back, it was a good preparation also to be in the teaching staff of the monastery now,
Yeah.
where I teach the novices and the juniors.
That's good.
Yeah.
Before you studied in San Beda for your college, you had no idea about Saint Benedict, or were you already?
Well, very lightly because, of course, at Assumption, it was run by
I see.
the Benedictine Sisters of
I
Saint
see. I
Scholastica.
see. Oh,
But when I was in college, that was from 63 to 67, there was no Transfiguration Monastery yet.
okay.
So it was founded only in 1983. So many years had passed.
Yeah. So you really wanted to study in San Beda because of your high school?
Yeah, that was the choice.
I see.
That was the
I see.
choice. The practical reason was my aunt's house was 1 block away from San Beda.
Near Malacanang.
Near Malacanang.
I
So I
see.
just walked to school.
Anong street ito?
Arlegui.
Arlegui, yeah. Familiar.
So yeah, it was just at the corner from the
Yeah.
Malacanang guest house. So I
Yeah,
just walked
yeah.
to school,
And
Plus,
ito
of course, my elder brother was graduated from San Beda. So,
I see. I see.
parang meron ng connection.
Oo. Doon ka na mag-shortcut sa Bima pa.
Yes, yeah. You know that.
I'm familiar with that.
Yes, yeah.
Because I lived, I don't know, doon sa side ng San Sebastian.
Yeah.
Pero, along the Garda, but side sa San Beda.
Yeah.
Oo. Ang galing, galing. So, AB Philosophy cum laude at 18, and then master's degree in UST, Philosophy again.
Let me correct. I did not really get my MA degree.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because after I had finished all of my units, and I was supposed to start writing my thesis. I was 20 years old, and I told my father, I said, I don't think it's the right time. I said, I might be in the right place, but it's the wrong time. I said, Papa, do you know that my classmates, are even older than you? I seem to be out of place. And I remember on the first day of graduate school, I entered the classroom, I sat down, and then one of my classmates in his Barong Tagalog, an elderly man, approached me, and he said, philosophy? And I said, yes, sir, I said. So he said, oh, philosophy is on the other building. The undergraduate, And I said, no, I said, for MA philosophy. Oh, okay, all right, you're in the right place. But,
18, that was extraordinary.
Yeah, and during that time, the graduate schools were only open in the evenings.
Yeah.
So most of my classmates were really, really professors, and
Pero why did you decide to take up MA in philosophy?
Well, first because I would not be allowed to go to New York already at 18.
You had to stay in Manila.
I had to stay in Manila.
I
My
see.
father said, totoy na totoy ka pa. You don't know how New York is. In fact, in Manila, naliligaw ka. You get lost in Manila, what more in New York? He said, so you take your master's. So I said, yeah, okay, I always believed in the good intentions of parents.
Some of your classmates in college had enrolled in the law course.
Yeah.
And you did not.
I did not.
But why? Dahil mga kaibigan mo na, no?
Yeah, and that's funny because, my father was a law student.
I see.
Before the war, and when the war broke out, he had to stop his studies. That's why he never finished his law. And sometimes they would kid me late in the later years, and they said, you have a very legal mind.
Yeah.
You should have proceeded into
He
law.
wanted to.
Well, he did not really say it, but parang he would
He
always
gave
say,
you the cue.
yeah, some cues, But I said, no, I think I said I want just to continue, philosophy.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
was enjoying it. I had very good grades in philosophy, and I had very good professors in San Beda. So parang the only way to go was for the
Yeah,
graduate
masters
studies.
ka
Yeah,
na.
yeah.
Galing, galing. Dahil some of your friends pursued law,
Law, yes, yeah,
and they made good.
yes.
They made good. And anyway, pero hindi pala philosophy ang gusto mo.
Yeah,
It was just a way to stay in Manila.
to stay in Manila to make my family, my parents especially, happy. I was a very obedient boy.
Pero you were not in the fashion industry yet.
No, not yet,
Not
but
yet.
I love to design.
Uh-huh.
And when I was in high school, later on, many, many years later,
Uh-huh.
when I was already a designer and when I was already doing fashion shows with Pitoy Moreno abroad, in New York, in Chicago, one time I told him, Pito, I said, Pitoy, when I was in high school, I used to trace your designs 100 times
Wow.
in the society page, until I mastered them. And, Pitoy was really so delighted.
Yeah, it was an honor.
Yeah. And I said, God has been good. Look, now we're doing shows together. So that was like already a, parang telling me, oh, you're doing the right thing.
Why in New York? Why did you pursue your
My fashion design.
you could have chosen France or Paris,
yes,
or
because I was very practical. If I went to Paris, I would have to learn French.
okay.
But if I went to New York, I would easily go through the classes because the medium is English. Plus the fact that I had a friend, Ricardo Valbuena, who was a fashion designer who had moved to New York already, who highly recommended
I see.
Mayor
Sleeves.
School, Mayor School in New York, and I chose there because instead of the Fashion Institute of Technology (FIT). Why? Because I already had a lot of units in
I
AB.
see.
If I enrolled at FIT, I would have to take again all of those units which I already had. So I said I wanted to go straight to the mechanics of fashion design.
I see.
And Mayor School offered a full course on not just designing, but also pattern making,
Wow.
of sewing, of draping, grading, the whole works of putting together a dress.
That was exactly what you wanted.
That was what I wanted, because that time in Manila, when they say it's a fashion designer, all he does is actually sketch to have do the design, but he wouldn't know how to put it together. He wouldn't know how to make a dress out of that design. I wanted to know every single step of the way, from the
Wow.
pattern making, to the actual sewing. In fact, when I was sent by Mayor School to represent the school in the annual competition of the New York Fashion Designers Foundation, that was what they exactly asked for. And this was
Every
1970.
facet of it.
First, you submit your sketches, and there's already an elimination. And then you do the patterns in front of the judges, and then you get another elimination.
Wow.
And then you do the sewing yourself, another elimination.
Wow.
So that by
So every step of the way, and the
you're
whole
being graded.
process.
You're being graded. So during that gala fashion show, where the 20 participating designers were present, it meant they had gone through months and months of already scrutiny under the judges.
That was the final
That was the final,
staging.
the showing at the Plaza Hotel, no
Wow.
less.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was a big night, and honestly, I wasn't really too too hopeful because there were other designers who were also very good.
And you were very young then.
Yes, I was 20.
You're probably the youngest.
Yeah, I was one of the youngest.
Yeah.
Some of my classmates, of course, were much
Yeah,
older.
30, 40.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I always say, God is good. Thanks be
Yeah.
to God, Bless. I always say, it was also very timely because that weekend, Saks Fifth Avenue they always change their windows, no?
Yeah.
Display.
Mm.
And that weekend, Saks Fifth Avenue had all of these top designers displaying gowns in black, all black.
Uh-huh.
And my number at the competition was the only black one.
Oh, so it was included.
Yes, it was like
Wow.
I was very
A display.
I was very into what the look
Yeah,
that they were being proud of.
And Saks Fifth
Yes,
Avenue
Saks
pa.
Avenue had
of
all
course.
its windows in black. So
Yeah.
when my number came out in black, I said, "Oh, that's a plus factor."
Yeah. It was as if that you had anticipated.
Yeah, it's
That's wow. And Saks Fifth Avenue is the biggest stage, di ba?
Yes, that time.
Wow.
So it was really a blessing.
And you decided to come back
Yes.
after 2.5 years.
Yes.
You could have stayed. I'm sure there were many offers.
Yeah, but as Thelma San Juan wrote in her article, I went on a retreat.
Yeah,
One day I went on a retreat in upstate New York, and it was a very, very spiritual experience.
Can you tell us?
Yeah, it was fall, my favorite season, no? So I took the train at Grand Central, and then of course, as the train started to move upstate, first you would see all of these dark buildings, the dirty graffitis, and all of that. And then as it went out into the country, you began to see all of these fields, first a lot of trees with colors of yellow, orange, brown,
the countryside of New York,
of autumn, and believe it or not, halfway through the train ride, it started to snow.
Wow!
Little by little, and I was sitting by the window, and I was looking at it, and it started to snow little by little until when we reached Hyde Park, everything, the whole station, everything was covered in 6 inches of snow.
Wow!
It was like everything was so pure, everything was so clean, so neat, and that night as I was resting in my room, I began to ponder, and think that it was like there was a message that was being given to me. And of course, this was a Blessed Sacrament Fathers convent. No, so they also had the divine office. So I enjoyed the prayers, the chanting, and all of that.
Yeah.
So
it was a church.
Yeah, a convent.
A convent that
yes,
you.
And
was that prearranged?
yes, I arranged it because you see when you go to St. Patrick's in the bulletin board, you would have all of those places.
A retreat.
Retreat places.
Yeah.
So I just picked it up, and wrote and placed an appointment, a reservation. Wow. And then, of course, because of the beautiful experience, I wrote my family and I said, "Oh, guess what?" I said, "I had the most beautiful experience, in all my stay in New York. It was so uplifting. It was so," and I said, "I enjoyed it so much. I think I will come there more often." Naku, kinabahan yata ang parents ko. So within a month, they came to visit, and I think they were getting afraid that I was being drawn to the religious
they
life.
would lose you.
Yeah, so they said, no. You said, "You're probably homesick. You're just homesick. You've been away for 2.5 years, you're just homesick. So let's just make pasyal first. Let's go to Europe, and then you go to Manila. Ay, paandarin mo muna yung pinag-aralan mo. You know, you always said that this was your
Your
dream.
dad or your mom, sino ang vocal sa
My
kanila?
mother was the
Your
more
mom.
vocal. My father's usually very silent.
Yeah.
No, but my mother was saying, you should use first, put into practice what you had learned. You had won this award, you know, put it into practice. Show Manila what you can do, you know. So
Yeah.
I went home with them, enjoyed the European trip, and when I came home a week later, a friend of mine, Arecaredo Valbuena, said, "Oh, let me introduce you to Christian Espiritu. He's the big
Okay.
name now,
Yeah.
you know, in fashion here in Manila." So he brought me there, and of course, being a New York graduate, I had my portfolio with me, you know. So when I met him, I opened my portfolio. I showed my credentials, sample sketches, and then he said, "Oh, you can start tomorrow."
Excited siya.
He got so excited, and I said, "No, no, no, Christian." I said, "I just arrived from New York. You know, I'd like to see my friends. You know, maybe give me 2 weeks." I said, you know, and stay with the family first. And then
Yeah.
after 2 weeks, I said, you know, maybe I can start. And
Yeah.
that was how it all started. I stayed with him for 2 years. I always say that I learned so much from Christian Espiritu.
Yeah.
I owe him that much because, why? Because I was trained in New York. I
Yeah.
knew
Yeah.
how the New York scene functioned.
Yeah.
I knew where the garment district was. I knew where to buy the textiles, the buttons, and
Yeah.
all of that. I knew nothing about Manila. I didn't even know where Divisoria was. You
Oh
know?
my God.
So it was at Christian. Well, I had that training of on the spot, you know,
So you would go
doing
to the
it.
Visoria and
Yeah, I
yeah.
would sometimes go to Divisoria. And he trusted me so much, you know, while other designers would have what they call guest or ghost designers, customers whom they never meet.
Yeah.
In Christian's case, he introduced me as my assistant designer.
I
So I
see.
would talk to clients, I would attend to their fittings, I would do sketches for them, I would talk to the cutters how to do it, you know.
Wow.
If there is something very special that I want in a fabric, I personally go to Divisoria with the buyer. I attend to their fittings. And if there
Wow.
is a big wedding, of course,
Yeah.
I would be the one to go to the house
Yeah.
of the bride to see to it that everything is
Wow.
well done.
And
You
you
know,
have made many.
connections. Yes, I made a lot of friends who later on, of course, became my clients also.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is why after 2.5 years, when I decided to open my shop, first I went on a sabbatical for half a
Okay.
year. I told Christian really because that time I was overworked, you know, because I was doing the gowns of the appointments of the clients most of the time,
Yeah.
and I was also attending to the ternos of the first lady, which was
Oh.
like two separate jobs altogether.
Wow.
So I would always do overtime. You know, at 6 o'clock, Christian would go home on the dot,
Yeah.
and I would have to stay to see
And
to it.
finish
Yeah,
everything.
to see that everything is moving, and if like there's a turno that's supposed to be picked up, you know, and the Metrocom would be there outside waiting. I would be there inside waiting to see to it that the turnos of
And
the First Lady are finished and delivered. You know, so
ternos
uh,
ni First Lady
yes,
were
and these were no ordinary
yeah,
turnos.
yeah, and
I think it was really the high point of Christian's career.
yeah.
You know, we were doing very special turnos for her. And so I had to make sure that every single detail was in
Wow.
place. But after, you know, like 2.5 years, I was really exhausted. You know, first I told Christian, I wanted, you know, first I said, just give me a break, you know, of like 2 weeks. But he said, oh, you know, we're so busy, you know, you cannot be
Yeah.
away for 2 weeks. And then I said, okay, just maybe, I said, give me an assistant. I said, so I can concentrate with the turners of the First Lady, and then the other assistant would take care of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
clients. You know, He said, yes, yes, we'll do that. But, I waited for a month, for 2 months. It went on for half a year until finally, after half a
Hindi
year,
na kaya.
I
You had
said,
to give
I
up.
don't think he's really giving, he had
Yeah,
any
yeah.
plan. So I said, Christian, I said, I'm really exhausted. I said, I'm losing weight. My family's getting worried because, I said, I think I'd really have to go, you know. And that was the time. No, he said, wait, wait. He said, we will have to get your replacement. And, he trusted me so much. I had to do the interviews for those who were going to replace me.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
said, I will not only take one, I'll take two, as you suggested. One for the turnos of the First Lady
Yeah,
and one
yeah.
for the clients. So I ended up, interviewing the applicants,
yeah.
and I could
Who would
remember very
replace?
clearly one applicant said when I gave him the job description, he said, "Ay, para pala akong nagbukas ng sarili kong shop." It's like I'd be opening my own business. I mean,
Yeah,
everything will fall under me.
yeah.
And he said, well, that's exactly how it is. I said, but I said, you would be thankful because
Yeah.
it's a very good training
Yeah.
on the spot training in Manila.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so thank you, Christian, for all of that.
But so nag-sabbatical ka
Yeah, I
after
went
that.
first for 6
You
months.
were really exhausted and
I was
tired.
exhausted, plus the fact that I didn't want to let it happen that even when I opened my business, former clients will transfer to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Then they would say in Filipino, sinulot niya yung
Yeah,
mga
yeah,
customers. So I
Yeah.
refused to do that. I was away completely from the fashion scene for half a year.
Mataas ang protocol mo,
Yeah,
standards of protocol.
I believe that out
Yeah.
of respect for my
Yeah,
former
yeah.
employer,
Yeah.
I should be away. And then if after half a year I opened my business and some would visit me, I said, well, it only means they really liked what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know.
Lalo na dyan sa fashion, it can be very competitive.
Yes, yeah. It's and it was really a big honor at the time that uh, I invited two clients who had become friends at the time, Tingting ko, Huang ko,
Oh, wow.
together with Juliet Romualdez,
Wow.
Mrs. Kokoy Romualdez,
Yeah,
who's a
yeah.
Gomez. Who's a Gomez from Pampanga.
Ah,
But
ganun ba?
we are not related
Ah,
on
I
the
see.
Gomez side. We're related on the Dizon side.
Dizon.
But they willingly agreed to cut the ribbon, during the opening of my little shop. And from there it
Si
was
Coco Romualdez was ambassador that
ambassador.
time.
Yes, yeah,
To Washington.
yes, yeah.
Wow. So, who's who?
Well,
You
I said,
were
if they like me, they will find me. If
galing,
they like me, they
galing.
will find me. And of course, some came to me at the same time. Still went to
That
Christian.
was a time when fashion was at its highest peak or something.
Well,
di ba?
they always say it was another high point in Philippine fashion. The 80s. The 80s were another high point in Philippine fashion. This is when you had
Dahil kina First Lady Imelda, Ting Ting.
and we owe it, of course, to the First Lady to having shown the terno and Philippine fashion to the world,
Yeah, yung
And for
ano
that,
niya dyan, diba?
we owe it that much
Kahit
to
yung
her.
international engagements, she would
Yeah,
wear
she
the
always
terno.
wore them. So she was bringing in, showing to the world, what Philippine fashion was.
Wow.
And that was the time
I
that, of
wonder
course,
ilan-
Pitoy Moreno,
Yeah.
Ben Farales, Aureo Alonso. And it's funny
Alonso.
because my training was in haute couture, in high fashion. I didn't do ready to wear. So my clients were more of the mature ladies.
And the elite.
And sometimes those who would make an appointment, to see me for the first time, not really knowing me, when they see me for the first time, they would always say, "Ay,
Ikaw ba?
Bata ka pa
Bata
pala.
ka
You know, we thought you're like the age
Yeah.
of Pitoy
Yeah,
and, you know,
yeah.
and Aurelio and
Yeah.
Mang Ben, you know. Because
Ben Farales,
yes, Ben
di ba?
Farales,
Wow.
because I was doing haute couture, you know, of course. And of course, the target was the women who can afford good clothes, you know. And
You were already in that league.
I soon
ang galing.
I entered that league, you know, and they had become good friends of mine, you know.
It's
So
good that they were not threatened by you, no?
I don't think so, you know, because I made sure that telling them that in my younger years, you know, they were my idols, you know.
Yeah. At
It's
saka
that
ano
way.
rin, they would see a talent when they, makita nila ang talent when they see it.
Well, and
So,
I would want to think also it's, well, thanks be to God, you know, it's my personality.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I don't have a threatening
yeah,
personality.
yeah, yeah,
I am more gentle, I am more friendly,
yeah,
you know, and I think honest. You
yeah,
know, parang what you see is what you get. I
yeah.
don't have pretensions and things
Saka
like
hindi
that.
mo kinuha ang ano nila, yung attention that they got, no?
Yeah,
Andun pa rin.
it's ano, it's parang it's always telling people we can always coexist
Yeah, yeah.
peacefully. There are the clientele in Manila is so huge, you know, that you know we could have so many fashion designers, and each one would still have his own clientele.
Yan na yung time na Gan Gomez from San Beda. Yeah.
Yeah, I always made sure that when interviewed, I would say, I'm a graduate of San Beda.
Yeah,
AB
yeah.
philosophy. They would always say, AB philosophy, parang ang layo, you know. And I would say, no, one day I would write the philosophy of fashion, which of course I was never able to do
Yeah,
because, you know, I got involved in so many things,
yeah.
you know, and I did a book on liturgical vestments, worship and weave, which was the first locally published book on liturgical vestments. It came out in year 2000,
I see.
and
I see.
it won the National Book Award
Oh,
in 2001, you
congratulations.
know, for art and
Congratulations.
culture.
Oh,
And I did that because having been permitted already to do sketching, designing, of course, liturgical vestments for the church. Soon I was invited also to teach at the Paul VI Institute of Liturgy in Malaybalay, also under San Beda, you know. So the then director of the institute for the Anska Chuponko, who is OSB from San Beda,
yeah, yeah.
and who was the director of the Liturgical Institute in Rome for so many years, you know, he knew my background in fashion. And he knew, even as a designer, I was already promoting indigenous fabrics. So
see.
he asked me to work with him on seminars on the inculturation of
Ang
vestments.
galing.
And that became the starting point for writing that book on liturgical vestments,
see,
the worship
I
and
see.
wave. No?
Yeah. Pero, matanong kita dahil ang San Beda Mindiola is not only a campus from elementary to college of law. And of course, merong basketball courts, merong football field, may swimming pool.
Yes.
But of course, there's a church.
Yeah.
And beside the church, a portion of the building is, to us students then, off limits.
Yes, yeah.
Off limits. Pero sometimes pumupunta ako sa church,
and you can
to say
see
a
through
prayer.
the side windows.
Oo,
the
makikita
enclosure,
mo,
yeah,
and
the garden.
there's nobody there. And, an image of tranquility.
Yes, yeah.
Tranquility and peace, and wow. I have always been animated by that. Ano pala yun? monasteryo.
Yeah, it is a requirement actually.
Uh,
Why? Because Benedictine monasteries would always have what we call the enclosure.
uh,
For the monjas, it is the clausura. No, for us, it's we call it the enclosure. Uh, a portion of the monastery, which is called the cloister, is really reserved only for the monks,
uh,
where they are able to keep silent, to keep quiet.
uh,
That is the reason also, like big monasteries like ours, why people say, why do you have to have such a big place, which now is roughly 100 hectares?
mm,
It's because we want to maintain the
mm,
silence,
mm.
so that when people come, parang damang-dama nila kaagad, they could feel immediately the
Yeah,
difference from the outside world. That when
ibang-iba.
you come in, you feel
Oo.
it's a holy place. Why? Because it's very quiet, it's very silent,
Oo.
and we always say silence is actually the environment that you need to communicate with God.
Oo.
Parang it's a must. You have to
Mm.
have silence,
Yeah.
because that is when you can really listen to what God is trying to tell you. It's not
Yeah.
always us telling God what we want. I always say, did you know God also wants to tell us something?
Oo.
But sometimes we are so busy,
Oo.
we are so noisy, the phone is always busy,
Oo.
so God couldn't, that time when there were no cell phones yet and you used
Yeah.
to dial,
Yeah.
they said, every time God would dial your number, it would say, line is busy, line is busy, you know. But in the monastery, when you
Mm.
enter, you could immediately feel that
Yeah.
it's a very quiet place.
When
So,
when was the first time that you thought of joining the monastery?
well, this was in the late 80s, no,
Uh,
but
uh,
it wasn't the monastery yet. I was
uh,
just parang discerning it. What is this?
mm,
This feeling that I feel I'm being called by the Lord,
uh,
you know. And when I went to my spiritual director,
mm,
I remember very clearly, I said, Bishop, I said, wag po kayong tatawa, ha? Don't laugh, but
mm,
I'll tell you something. And I said, uh, he said, what are you going to tell? I said, I don't know, Bishop, but sometimes I have the feeling that God is calling me
uh,
to a religious life. And he looked at me and he said, so why will I laugh? Sabi niya, there's nothing laughable about that. And he said, Bishop naman, I said, I built my whole life, 20 years,
yeah,
building a name. I said, now that I'm beginning to harvest,
yeah,
the
yeah,
fruits of my labor, I'm not going to give this career up.
yeah,
I
yeah.
said, this is what I've worked for so much. I'm not going to give this up.
And you were already on top.
That's just it. I said, now
Yeah,
is, kumbaga, parang this is already the prophet, I'm
yeah,
beginning to
yeah,
harvest,
yeah.
And he said, there's no hurry, take your time. But I said, but I'm already in my late 30s,
Uh,
not know. So finally, he gave me a list of so many congregations. I
mm.
wrote, and then after months, so many months, I
And
wrote,
you wrote
yeah,
many
many
congregations.
congregations asking
Uh,
for prospectus or their
uh.
life, what it is.
So Franciscans and
Yeah, oh,
Coletos,
yes. And then
Jesuits.
I went back to the bishop and I said, para pong, it seems what I'm looking for is not in any of
Uh,
these.
uh,
So I said, why? He said, what are you looking
mm.
for? I'm looking for something, very simple, very quiet, maybe away from the city.
You
You
did
know,
not want to be a priest.
no, no,
Uh-huh.
I did not want.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember clearly when I was a novice, and my abbot then
Uh-uh.
wanted me to proceed to priesthood.
Ang abot sa San Beda is the head, di ba?
Yes, the head,
Oo,
yeah,
oo.
abbot. And he said, and I told him, so he was suggesting I should proceed to priesthood, so continue my theological studies at John Vianney, which I had started already. I said, I can continue my studies in theology, but I said, I do not, I do not feel like I'm being called to the priesthood.
Oo,
He
oo.
said, why? I said, I just want to be an ordinary monk.
Oo.
My ideal would be somebody who would just be there doing simple things, being very active, very,
That's the thing that distinguishes the Benedictine order.
yes.
I am sorry, but you have to educate me, Dom. No?
Uh,
Dahil ang daming orders, Recoletos, Franciscans, many, many.
yes.
And, pero sa Benedictine, pwede kang maging pare, pwede ka rin
Hindi.
maging
You can choose to remain as a brother.
as a brother.
As a brother, yeah.
Diyan nga ako naku-confuse when I studied in San Beda. You were all wearing
The same.
oo.
Yeah, because it's especially after the Second Vatican Council, no? Kasi before the Second Vatican Council, parang there are priests and there are brothers. And before the Second Vatican Council, para bang the brothers are second class, the first class are the fathers, which the Second Vatican Council removed.
Okay.
You know, everybody is pare-pareho lang. You are all monks. Whether you are an ordained priest or you are a solemn professed monk, you occupy the same rank. But of course, the priest would have the privilege to say mass.
Yeah, yeah.
And to give absolution. That is why when I was the guest master for a total of almost 13 years, sometimes I would give spiritual direction. And I would talk to retreatants and I could bring them to perfect contrition, but I cannot absolve. I would still say, you will have to go to the priest and to tell him exactly what you told me and he will give you the absolution. Only the priests can do that.
Doon sa San Beda nga, I could not tell which one was Dom, which one was father.
Yeah, because all of us are just wearing the same. Because supposedly there is no distinction. That is why the title Dom could be applied even to the priest and even to the abbot. Parang everybody is Dom, everybody is Dominus.
Dom stands for?
Dom is the short for Dominus, which is Latin for the Lord.
Okay.
So it's like saying, the Lord be with you. The Lord is with you. It's a very beautiful greeting. Every time they would say Dom Martin, Dom Oscar, it's the Lord be with you. And so in that case, we are all equal. So I would, and the beautiful thing about my choice is that I think early on, I excluded myself already from ever becoming an abbot. In fact, that was what the abbot told me when I said, I don't want to proceed to priesthood. He said, you will never become an abbot. And I said, no, Father, I said, I have no intentions of becoming an abbot.
And abbot is the highest rank.
I said, I just want to remain an ordinary monk. And when I recalled it, and once I told him, I said, and then you know what, you remember, Father, I said, you know what you told me? You got up and you said, ay bahala ka. He was upset.
He wanted you to be a priest.
He wanted me to be a priest. And I said, no, I don't want to be a priest. And
sino to naabot? Baka naabutan ko yan.
About Africa, Eduardo Africa.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember that.
Yeah. But for the longest time, he was also studying in Rome. He was the youngest abbot of San Beda. And then he founded Transfiguration Monastery.
Okay. So he was the one who
Started it. Now we have a new abbot, Abbot Savio Sikuan, who's a young priest. Although, of course, he's 61.
And in the Philippines, there can only be one abbot.
No. Every independent autonomous monastery would have its own abbot.
We'll have an abbot.
So the Philippine province of the Benedictine Subiaco congregation, San Beda or Our Lady of Montserrat in Manila has its own abbot, Abbot Austin, Cadiz, and Malaybalay has its own abbot, Abbot Savio Sikuan.
Okay. Yeah. And there are only two monasteries.
Two autonomous monasteries. Although, of course, in Manila, the mother house there has other kumbaga satellite communities,
Uh-huh.
like the school in Alabang, the school in Taytay, but they are all under the Abbot of Manila of San
Yeah.
Beda.
I remember sa Alabang Hills when that was started in the
Yes, yeah.
80s.
Mm-mm.
That was started. That was a bold move of the
Yeah.
Benedictine
Yes, yeah.
order. No? Pero ngayon, it's much bigger than
So,
Mindiola. It has
that's
out.
true.
Wow, it's now much bigger,
Yeah, it's
and it has produced many illustrious
yeah.
graduates.
That's
No.
why it is always very hard
Mm,
to put a judgment or a decision, final decision on
yeah.
something. Later on,
Yeah.
para bang patience, you look at
Yeah.
where it would lead us, being open to the Spirit, and look how it prospered.
And I don't think you have not answered me yet. Now, why the Benedictine order?
Well, first, why Transfiguration? Because when I told my spiritual director,
Doon ka sa Transfiguration, sa balay-balay, doon ka pumasok?
doon ako pumasok. Yes, oo.
So not in
Not
San
in San
Beda?
Beda. Not in San Beda. Because ang sabi ko nga, I told my spiritual director, I said I wanted something simple, something quiet, something maybe far from the city, with a lot of time for prayer and quiet. And then he said, you're probably thinking of monastic life. So he said, there's a monastery in Malaybalay. Okay, you write.
I see.
You write this monastery.
Wow.
So, yun.
You explained sa akin before we started, there's a difference between monastic and contemplative.
Yes, well, we try not to use the word contemplative, no? We prefer to use monastic. Why? Because especially in the Philippines, when you say contemplative, what comes to their mind is the pre-Vatican idea of the monjas in Santa Clara, Pink Sisters, the Carmelites. I remember that, because I have an aunt who's a Pink Sister. I have another aunt who's a Carmelite, and they never went out. We couldn't, before Vatican II, we couldn't even talk to them visually. There's always the grills and the curtains. That was the picture of the contemplative.
Never to be seen and never to see.
And you cannot talk to them directly. I used to say, on Christmas when we would visit, and my aunt would bring out her fingers and we would mano. Because I said, I always tell my mother, are you sure that's Tita? Because you could only see the fingers. But monastic is more descriptive of our life.
Yeah.
Monastic, that was how Saint Benedict envisioned it. It is a group of monks, no? Oh, incidentally, he wrote the book, for monks, and when he started, these were actually lay people. In fact, Saint Benedict was
lay people.
Yeah, Saint Benedict was not a priest. Yes, that is why it is more monastic for us. It's more Benedictine when we do not have ourselves ordained. Because even Saint Benedict was not a priest. That is during his time. That's the reason why during his time, on Sundays, they would still have to go to the church in the village. But, being more practical nowadays, we have to ordain some of our members so that
you don't have to go.
You don't have to go out. So, but monastic gives you a life that is very simple, that's very structured. There are 7 times of prayer, but in the traditional prayer of we get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. 3:40 is the first prayer called Matins. That's followed by meditation, and then Lauds at 5 o'clock, followed by Mass at 5:20. Then we have a short break. By 6:15 we have Terce, and then a short meeting, and then there is breakfast, and then, like in my case, I teach, so there would be, I would give classes right after breakfast until 8 o'clock, 8:30, and then everybody goes to work, wherever you are assigned. So I was, for the longest time, the guest master. So I would go to the guest house, attend to the guests. I would give classes after breakfast. I was one time also the cellarer or the finance officer, secretary of the foundation, you know, uh, director of the Benedictine Oblates. We all had different designations. Somebody would be assigned to the gift shop, somebody's assigned to the farm, to the factory. Everybody is busy. And then we gather together again at 11:30 for the midday prayer, and then lunch, and then followed by precious siesta. Why do I say precious siesta? Because if you count the hours, if you got up at 3 o'clock, by 1 o'clock, that's one whole day already. So you will have to recharge, for at least 45 minutes, take a nap, and then by 2 o'clock, you go to prayer again, and then minor labora, lectio divina for those under formation, that is the reading of sacred scripture. And then by 5 o'clock, we go back to church again for vespers, followed by dinner at 6 o'clock, and then the last prayer at 7 o'clock. And everyone is expected to attend all of those prayers, the 7 times of prayer. In my case, only starting, I did that for 33 years, but now with my heart condition, I have, under my doctor's insistence, I had to be excused from the 3:40 prayers. So I wake up at 4 instead of 3 to start at 5 o'clock, because of my health condition. But otherwise, if there is no valid excuse, you are expected. Why?
And
because you said you entered the monastery because you want to
that's
pray.
it, no?
So why will you be absent?
Ang galing, no? Ang galing. Ilan kayo sa Transfiguration?
Well, actually, it's like practically 22. No,
Okay.
We only have 2 novices right now. We don't have a postulant, which is the first stage, because our postulants had already become novices. And then we have 2 in simple vows. They were before the no, we have 4 now, junior monks, who will be under simple profession for 3 years at least. That could be extended, of course, depending on how prepared they are to take the final vows. And then the rest are solemn professed monks.
In Transfiguration, kasama na yung those who would pursue priesthood and those who...
Although for their theology, we send them to John Vianney. Here in Cagayan de Oro, we have a prayer house, a house of studies near just adjacent to the campus. So, we send them there. I stayed there also for some time when I was taking my theology.
Galing, galing. Was it easy for you to decide to enter the Transfiguration?
No, I wouldn't say easy. I would just say it was God blessed. Everybody was saying that I was crazy. I must have been crazy because I, with that career, and then all of a sudden
you were a celebrity.
I feel uncomfortable with that term.
You were exactly the Gang Gomez. No?
It's like this. Parang I have always felt I had always had that thirst for being quiet, being silent, talk when you have to, but most of the time, I could spend the whole day working just by myself,
Parang, you did not enjoy the limelight.
I did not. I was not the typical fashion designer who was always in socials. But of course, if there was a gala, if there was a gala fashion show, if there is a gala at the Cultural Center of the Philippines, I have to be present.
Center of attention.
I have to be seen by my clients because I'm doing all of their gowns. And of course, parang it was more of a career move that I have to be there to be seen.
Yeah.
But if I had a choice, I would rather stay at home, and do some reading or watch some late movies. In fact, even that time, the discos were very popular.
Yeah, yeah.
I
yeah.
hardly went to the discos. So when people see me, and I mean in a disco, they would say, okay, so sino naman ang pinapasyal mong kaibigan from New York? Because most of the time, I go to the disco only to bring my
A New
guests
York
from New
friend,
York,
oh.
entertaining them. Of course, you
Yeah,
show them
yeah.
around. But otherwise, parang I would rather stay at home and watch late movies. That's why, and I would even wait for 700 Club, until 1 o'clock. That's
Yeah.
why when I was entering and I saw the schedule of prayers, and you said you get up at 3 o'clock because 3:30 you should be in church, 3:40 you begin the first prayer. I said, oh my God, I'm used to staying up to 1 o'clock. I sleep at 1. If I get up at 3, tama sila, I will die. I mean, they will send me home because I'll get sick.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's all the grace of God.
You were 41 when
I
you
was
joined.
41 when I entered.
And I understand they had to relax the age limit.
Well, because I found out later
Uh-huh.
that the cutoff age was 35.
Uh-huh.
And I found out only much later when I already had my plane ticket. We Filipinos then, unlike now, local tourism is very popular.
Yeah.
But noon, in the 60s, parang people travel abroad. They don't travel around the Philippines. So I wasn't very good in my Philippine geography. I didn't even know where Malaybalay was. So I thought it was somewhere south of Manila, But I readily bought the ticket for Cagayan de Oro, and
Not knowing
that it would be in Mindanao.
Mindanao.
So finally I said, I bought the ticket, and then of course, I was a little bit upset when I found it was in Mindanao, because that time Mindanao was not the place to go.
May mga negative advisory
if my family had found out, they will never let me go. In fact, they never found out because I told the white lie where I was going. And
But if they knew na may para sa Cagayan de Oro,
yes, it was later.
that was much later.
Yeah. But so when I wrote Transfiguration, I said, I already have my plane ticket. Yes, I would go for observation. And then, sinulat ko pa, P.S. Incidentally, I am 40 years old, turning 41 next month. Naku, agad-agad dumating ang telegram. Wala pang cellphone kasi noon, telegram. And they said, we're very sorry, but our cutoff age is 35. You're way beyond that age. We never made an exception before. So we're very sorry. We cannot accept you. You don't have to come for the observation. So I said, well, I already have my plane ticket. Let me go on a retreat. Let me go on a retreat. So I did. And then when it was time to leave, I said, can I come back again? And then I was told, yeah, you can come back for a retreat, but don't have any false hopes that we would consider you. Okay, I said, I'll just come back for a retreat.
First time you went to Transfiguration, how long did you stay there?
I stayed for, close to a month. Because the observation noon required talaga is 1 month.
And you had to follow a routine or a schedule.
Of course, the schedule of prayers. And then for the labora, where you are assigned. That is the reason why after 1 month when I came back, kasi when I left, because I didn't want to tell people where I was going. Kasi nga parang malaking yun. It's a big intriga and chismis that, what's he doing there? And, so I told my family and my friends, I said I was going to Bangkok, to discuss some fashion show possibilities.
Tinago mo ang Transfiguration.
And when I came back, I was all dark because I was assigned in the coffee farm. I was so dark. And they said, what happened to you? And I said, well, you see, the house of the producer was a beach house. For practically the whole time we were in the beach. So that's why I'm all burned, sunburned, lies like that, And the Lord will forgive me. But everybody would have been worried.
Yeah, I'm sure. And
So,
they would not have allowed you to
Yeah.
travel alone again.
That's why later on I found out, they said,
Uh,
but my driver, he was saying, how come he was going to Bangkok, but
domestic.
no, yeah, I brought him to the domestic.
Yeah.
And then I made a quick excuse. I said, oh, because I went to Cebu first. Then from Cebu, I took the flight to Bangkok. Oh, another white lie. But, it helped. They were not aware.
Yeah.
I only told them when I was already accepted.
And you have always been very close to your mom.
Yeah, especially to
So
my mom.
she would know wherever you are.
Yeah. So they knew I was in Bangkok. I was in Bangkok.
And you were gone for almost a month, no?
Actually more than 3 weeks. More than 3 weeks.
There was no communication with your mom that time.
Wala. Parang ang alam ko lang is I had to go back before the 4th week is over because we were scheduled to go on a pilgrimage to Medjugorje, the family. So, yun, I had to go back.
Wow.
But you see, when you look at the Transfiguration, no, it's a very, excuse me, it's a very, well, I would say up-to-date monastery, because we update ourselves, So, and also in the rule, it says that we have to have our own fields, our own workshops, so that we don't have to go out, because St. Benedict says it's not good for the monks to be roaming around. That's the reason why we have our own coffee factory that produces monk's blend
And
in the monastery.
It's doing well.
Yeah, by the grace of God again. We have our own gift shop. We have the guest house. We have even now the Abbey Cafe that serves snacks,
People go there just to try those places.
And we have activities like sometimes concerts, and in fact, if I may mention it, next week we have a fundraising event called the Abbot's Dinner. The Abbot's Dinner on November 9 at 5:30 in the afternoon. It begins with a Sunday Mass, anticipated Mass, and then there is dinner inside the enclosure.
Wow.
So that is a rare experience because people get to enter the courtyard of the monastery, and that's where we have all the tables there and the dinner. It's a fundraising event, and people could always check our website, Abbey, Transfiguration Abbey, Bukidnon, Philippines, and they could always contact us there to get the details. But it is our way also of meeting our friends, our benefactors. Why? Because ordinarily, only the abbot and the guest master are allowed to talk directly and to mingle with the guests. The other monks are not allowed. They will have to ask permission first from the superior if they could talk to some guests. But
this
time is we get to meet our benefactors. Sometimes we haven't even met personally, to thank them personally, and of course receive their donation. And ours is a very big operations. You could imagine almost 100 hectares. We have coffee fields. We have the factory, which has over 30 workers. So roughly, ang daming workers. The operations is big.
I remember
that is
now,
why.
Dom, I used to receive invitations from Father Adan.
Before, we used to call that the prior's dinner. This is the first time we're doing
Abbot's
it
dinner.
as the abbot's dinner, because the prior then, Prior Savio Sikuan, is now the abbot already.
I
Oh,
see.
so it is now the abbot's dinner.
Ang
Yeah,
galing.
which other monasteries abroad do also.
Ang galing.
As a way of
Do they have that in Mindiola?
I am not sure. Not exactly. It is not exactly the way we do it, no.
Uh-huh.
But sila naman kasi, they have so many other activities where they really mingle.
Yeah,
You know, because when there is frolics, when there is,
Yung frolics,
yeah,
Yeah.
all the monks are there
Yeah.
enjoying with the students.
Yeah.
Then there's the school where some of the monks teach. They get to talk with the students.
Yeah, yeah.
Yung maraming silang activities, no? Unlike sa amin talaga, very, very limited.
Meron pang monks na kalaro ko ng basketball.
Yes, of course. Of course, we have to have leisure also. We have to have leisure also. Kami din naman from time to time, we get, of course, we don't have radios, we don't have television. Only the solemn professed with certain positions can use the cell phone. But from time to time, we also get to watch movies.
I see.
If there's a feast, a solemnity, the abbot would announce, okay, later after dinner we'll have movie showing. And of course everybody is happy. And then I always have to clarify, hindi naman palaging 10 Commandments ang pinanonood namin. Or King of Kings, But sometimes, and especially now that we have young people coming in, they want some action movies, So it's very balanced naman.
And nag-a-adjust na rin.
Oo, nag-a-adjust din.
Wow.
And we allow now, especially now, we allow the monks and even those under formation to go home once a year.
I see.
We call it a family visit, where the monk goes home, and it's a family visit. That's made very clear. It's not the time to go to Boracay with all your friends and all of that, but to spend time with your family.
Yeah.
And that is to dispel that old belief among parents. Now, sometimes they discourage their children, their sons to enter the monastery because we will never see you again, things like that. No, maswerte nga yung mga taga Mindanao, they can visit. Unlike us from Luzon, talagang pahirapan before our families can come to visit us.
Dom, every order has its own vows.
Yes, yeah.
And ano naman sa Benedictine order?
Yeah, in general kasi everybody would have the vows of poverty, of chastity, and obedience. All the priests in the diocese take that. Saint Benedict, when he wrote his rule, presented it a little different and something new. First, there is the vow of obedience, and then there is what we call the conversatio morum, or the conversion of life, which includes poverty and chastity.
Okay.
Meaning to say you're a change of lifestyle, really. And then a third one, which is very unique to the Benedictines, it's called the vow of stability. Stability. Only the Benedictines have that. We promise to spend the rest of our life living a monastic life, a monastic lifestyle in the monastery of our profession. In other words, I profess in Malaybalay, I will spend my whole life serving the monastery of Malaybalay and I will die in Malaybalay. Parang ganun. Unlike, for example, in the diocese, the priests would get assignments or even religious congregations, like, for example, the Salesians, they get assigned to different, for 3 years, or even countries, or even formation houses all over the country. Kami hindi. You're always there. You would be allowed to study, but after your studies,
you have to go back.
Yeah, like I studied, for example, I was sent for studies in Rome. And when you come back, you cannot say, "Ay, Father, let me teach na lang in Manila at San Beda." I said, no, you go back and you teach in Malaybalay. What you have learned, you will share for the monks of Malaybalay and for the people who visit Malaybalay.
And then,
Ganun.
since the Transfiguration opened in the 80s,
1983.
ano na kayo, 40 years na.
Yeah, more.
You had your 40th
40th last year.
anniversary.
Yeah.
Pero 40 years have passed and Balay has grown.
Yes.
Bukidnon has grown.
Yeah.
No? So,
the city has grown.
pero yung Transfiguration consists of 100 hectares.
Now, no? But
Now,
when we started,
okay.
it was only like 7 hectares.
I see.
Yeah, 7 hectares. Basically, the initial donation was 7 hectares. And then through the years, we were able to acquire, neighboring properties, small lots sometimes, you know. It's not just one big block, no, but small different blocks until it summed up to almost 100, because we also have a big portion that was under parang stewardship agreement with the government, where we put up one of the most impressive reforestation projects.
Okay.
And even when we started, the Department of Agriculture, the DENR, they've always been our partners. They provided our first coffee seedlings because we immediately planted, and our reforestation, they provide the seedlings, and they're very happy with it. Why? Because unlike some other reforestation projects, where you see people planting, a lot of picture taking, a lot of press releases, and then after that, wala na. Pero kasi kami, andun kami nakatira. So parang everyday we say, parang, oy, teka muna, bata mo nang masyado, kailangan ng clearing.
And yung coffee ninyo has gotten very, very popular.
Because it's really premium coffee. Monk's Blend is premium coffee, and honestly, it's the only one that is really our main source of income. Otherwise, the guest house is practically a hospitality project. Even the gift shop and the coffee shop, of course, they earn a little, it helps. But it is, if we had to depend only on them, it will not be enough. That is why we need the fundraising of the Abbot's dinner. It is the coffee that is really helping us. That is why we take very good care of it.
And the other thing that's going doon sa coffee is the coffee has also made Mindanao coffee popular.
Yes, it has. Sabi nga nila, it has made Malay-Balay especially placed it in the map. Because when you talk of Malay-Balay, you talk of the coffee, and of course, you talk of Malay-Balay, Bukidnon, you talk of the Church of the Transfiguration by our late national artist for architecture, Leandro Locsin. So, whether we like it or not, naging tourist spot na kami. But kaya nga, we need the enclosure.
Ang daming ginawa ni Leandro Locsin ng mga edifices.
Yes.
National.
Not only national, international. He did the palace of the Sultan of Brunei. He did the cultural center of the Philippines. He did the Makati Stock Exchange.
I used to work there.
Oh, really? See? So kaya nga, parang, actually, he designed it, but the one who saw it to completion is Leandro Locsin Jr. Because by that time, Mr. Locsin was already getting weak, but it was Leandro Locsin and associates who really saw to it.
Yung simbahan, di ba? Ganyan.
Yes. And that is actually his version of the Filipino architecture.
Wow.
Not the Pyramid of Egypt, which people say, oh, it looks like a pyramid. No. It's Filipino in the sense that when you enter, you look at all of those metal posts, and imagine them as bamboo. And then you enter inside and look at the ceiling. It's all made of hardwood that is placed horizontally. Imagine that as nipa. And that is exactly how a nipa hut looks like. But because he's a national artist and he has to guarantee 100 years that it's going to stand there, of course it has to be real heavy, good material and the use of something indigenous to to Bukidnon, which is the Mangima stone. That's why our monastery complex uses Mangima stone.
And then, ang kagandahan din, dahil yung mga vestments mo,
We all contribute.
indigenous din.
Yeah, oo. It's,
And I guess siguro yan ang ano, no? Yung statement mo na hindi ka rin pala tinanggal ng Diyos from fashion.
yes, yeah.
No, He brought you to the world na meron ding fashion,
Yeah.
pero fashion for the Lord.
Yeah, it's on a higher level. Parang
Yeah.
we always have to look at the complete picture, you know.
Yeah.
So parang it appears that the first 20 years of my fashion design were in preparation for what I was going to do later on.
And meron pa bang plano si Dom to produce more
Yes,
works?
yeah. Well, in fact, now I am concentrating on promoting Abaca. Abaca, which is the real, genuine, indigenous Filipino material.
Yeah.
Why? Because, of course, we're very proud of Piña. And, of course, it's really beautiful. But it's not really indigenous. Although, pag sinasabi kong, well, after 400 years, Filipino na rin yan. You know, but the Spaniards brought it during the galleon trade. But when they arrived here, the ancient Filipinos were already wearing handwoven abaca.
Yeah.
And abaca is plentiful. You know, so parang lately my advocacy is to promote abaca, and the monastery has given me permission to partner with HABI, the Philippine Textile Council, no. So in promoting it, so for the last 3 years, HABI has put up what they call the Eloisa Hizon-Gomez Abaca Weaving Competition, named after my mother.
Yeah.
You know, to honor my mother, who was very supportive of my work in abaca and indigenous textiles.
Meron akong kilalang grupo in Lagunglong, that's a town in Misamis Oriental, east of Cagayan de Oro. Ang products sila are abaca-based.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, then you have to show me that. You have to give me information about
I'll
that.
give you their number.
Because I am really doing now everything that has to do with abaca. And
Pero sa kanila yung mga bags.
bags,
Yung mga
yes,
din,
yeah. Yeah, because it was a major product in the Philippines. Cordage. Sabi nga nila, in the 1930s and 40s, the United States was dependent actually on Philippine hemp. You know?
Marami rin tayong abaca dito sa Mindanao.
Yeah.
Here in Misamis Oriental, I know.
I wish I could finish. I could because right now I am doing a whole collection of vestments using abaca, and hopefully, parang my research again would include other items using abaca. And hopefully in the future, you know, I could again all put those things in a book like Worship and Weave, you know, that would really highlight the use of the genuine Philippine indigenous material.
Alam mo, nakikita ko sa'yo, the same excitement that probably...
you know, yes. You know, in fact, when I give a tour at the museum, there are groups that would request for a guided tour, and I would show them around the 50-piece collection, which was exhibited at Ayala Museum in 1998 for the Philippine Centennial, and then was brought to the United States, and then to the Textile Museum of Canada, and then in 2019 in New York at the Philippine Center. You know, when I give them the tour and I tell them where this fabric came from, who wove this, and all of that, they would always say, Dom, when you talk about them as if they just happened yesterday, you know, you're so excited about. Yes, I said, because I love what I'm doing, you know, and that is, we have to love what we do, you know, and sabi nga nila, in monastic life, your life will have to be pervaded with love. If there is no love, you could never exist there.
So,
You know.
ano din, a monastic life can also be a very happy life.
Oh, definitely, definitely. It could be a very happy life, but don't commit the mistake of people thinking, ay, parang nasa heaven na kayo. No, 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 no. It's a human community. There will
Yeah.
still be differences. People will come late, and things like that. But, it's always taking it as a whole.
Yeah, yeah,
And always reminding us that we are not perfect.
yeah.
But the important thing is we are all one together in that desire to come closer to God. And that
Galing.
is basically what keeps us together.
Problema ko dahil si Shine has been signaling me kanina pa.
And you said we will go overtime. Okay, yeah.
Siguro, Dom, if I can ask you to give a parting message sa ating mga suki here in Cagayan de Oro, in Mindanao, and all over the world.
Yes, yeah. On YouTube.
How would you know the transfiguration? Diyan din nangyari ang transformation.
Yes, yeah.
And from a high profile in fashion design, not only nationally but even internationally, to a dome, pero holy pala. No? And 30 years, more than 30 years.
34 years.
34 years. Please tell us how it has been and how you see the future.
Well, I would always begin by saying that it is actually an attitude of openness that is very important to cultivate, because when we are open, we can listen to the Word of God. We should always be listening. Allow some time during the day of some quiet where you can really talk to God on a personal level. Why? Because let's face it, our life now is so busy, so hectic, so many pressures. But we can actually be also monastics even in the outside world. Sabi nga nila, you can still do contemplation even in the marketplace for as long as you have that attitude of openness. Prioritizing a certain period of the day where you are quiet, you are listening to what the Lord is trying to tell us, and that remember that it is not always us who have something to tell the Lord. Oftentimes the Lord siya din. The Lord wants to tell us, wants to talk to us. So let us give that time for Him. And by listening, that is the very beginning of a truly happy, contented life.
Salamat. Maraming salamat, Dom. Thank you very much for honoring our invitation. We are distinctly honored. And ang dami ko ring napulot from you. Nilabas ko yung istatwa ko ng San Beda ni Saint Benedict of Nursia.
Nursia, yes.
Nursia.
Well, thank you very much also for inviting
me.
And I'm inviting everyone to come visit Transfiguration Monastery. Look at our website, Transfiguration Abbey, Bukidnon, Philippines, for details of our Abbot's dinner on November 9.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Salamat po.
God
Maraming
bless.
salamat.
Thank you.
Thank you, friends. And I hope you, like me, had learned a lot from this episode. And siguro talaga God works in very many miraculous ways. No? God knows everything. And God knows where we should go, how we should do it, and peace will always be with us if we are with God. Salamat kay Dom. Good luck sa iyo and go San Beda go.
Go, San
Daghang
Beda, go.
salamat
Oh.
my friends. May hapon.
Thank you also.